Um, so I'm starting at the bottom of my page. I printed them out to make it easier on myself. Hey everyone, it's Aradhana. So, I've been thinking a lot about opening lines and the openings of stories because recently I was going through some of the novels I'm working on. Well, one that I'm not working on at the moment, but that I had started, and I saw my opening lines again, and I was like, hey, this is still something that I'm really proud of, and I shared it to a few people, and they were like, oh wow, this is something I would want to know more about. And I started thinking that, you know, openings of stories are really important in that they're supposed to grip you and get your attention in some way or the other, that your reader wants to continue the story. I can't say that every opening I've ever written has done that, because I was going through the things I've published and I'm like, some of these things are atmospheric, some of these things are lines that I specifically crafted to try and get the reader's attention, but some of these things are a little bit of world building, a little bit of introspection, and I think it works in the overall short story experience, but I don't know if it worked for other people. So going through all of these things to see my own approach to this, my own where I could work on it or in all of that, I found a few that I'm pretty proud of, and I would always love feedback and to know whether, if you hear these openings, is it something that you would want to know more about? Would you be interested in reading the rest of the story, or is it just like not something that you're into, What do you think about these introductions or these openings of these short stories that I am proud of writing? So I took down a few and I thought, hey, I'll give you my thoughts about what it was when I was writing it, and yeah, we'll see whether I can find a pattern and whether this is anything anybody else does when they're writing openings. Then there are hands on her waist, a body pressed up behind her as they stumble, laughing quietly through the woods back to the village. Those hands tug at her, turn her around, and press her up against a tree. Her amusement catches in her throat as lips skim up her neck. This is from Echoes and Ghost. This was actually the first short story I posted for members when I created my members tier on Ko-fi. And this was actually a series of scenes I had written for these characters that I then pieced together into a short story that I think, well, I enjoyed writing it. I think it makes for an interesting world building exercise. Again, this was the first short story I posted on Ko-fi, and I still go back to it and I'm like, hey, I'm still proud of these characters, I'm still proud of the story, but is it something that intrigues you? Is it something that you would want to read more of? This was also an exercise in me writing outside of my comfort zone in certain ways. There is that. Let's go to another one of the earlier short stories I had written, Wolf Girl, which was really, really short, and it was also an adaptation of a character piece that I had written and then I expanded on a little for a short story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived near the woods. She was thought to always stay on the path if she were to venture in. I really liked this concept of the way I had written this story, with the fairy tale elements versus the actual story elements, and so I liked the opening because it set up the very fairy tale-ish type element of it. But if someone is not into fairy tales or fairy tale retellings or those sort of features in stories, it's definitely not something they're going to be into. Let's see. The quiet between them felt like a chasm she could not cross. A divide that gaped and yawned and stretched further with each heartbeat. A black hole that pulled all feelings in and down, all vague attempts at connection, and threatened to swallow her whole. This piece was a little bit personal. It's a grief unspoken. It was an entire story with zero dialogue, even though it is that moment in time. It was a little bit personal, getting so this one I was proud of because of that. I felt it got all the emotions I wanted into that first paragraph there. So, but you know, I don't know if anybody else would agree. And then this one is from the novella that I just published. 4 young women sat in a small jail cell subdued. Or more accurately, 1 young woman was subdued, 1 was glaring out the bars of the cell at the world, and 2 were huddled together and giggling over pretty much everything and nothing at the same time. But wait, let's rewind a bit. We're getting ahead of ourselves. The story didn't quite start here. This is from what happened in Vegas, and I am pretty intrigued by myself that the opening 4 young women sat in a small jail cell remained consistent throughout edits, like from the very first draft to where it's published now. Even that first draft that was short, much shorter, just for my friends that I emailed out to them, that couple of lines did not change, but then the let's rewind a bit and the story didn't quite start here was added over multiple edits. And I think it worked because I do, spoiler, not exactly a spoiler, but I do come back to this refrain later in the story to get, when we get actually to where this has happened. But yeah, I loved this opening when I wrote it, because I was like, when I sent it to my friends before I had finished the story, I had sent the opening to them, and they were like, why are they in jail? And I want to know, does that work? As the writer, I think it worked, but it's still something I am proud of. It's still something I'm very amused by, that throughout multiple edits, I kept coming back to this and going, no, I still like this opening. I'm not changing it. You know? Okay. This next one was also a character that I'm writing elsewhere that I turned into a short story, and I do like the story a lot, and it's much longer than it was supposed to be. It was only after she knew she was out of sight of anyone that Vera began to run. The fear that she had kept at bay through sheer force of will, though she was certain the cleric had seen through her bravado, surged through her veins. Her fingers were tight on the packages in her hands, and she fled as if the demons of her past were right at her heels. This is from The Ferryman's Wife and The Black Fox. This is... I actually want to know what your thoughts are when you hear that, or when you read that. Like, what do you think the story's about just from that opening? I don't want to say anything about it because it's a story I'm very proud of. These are characters that I really enjoyed writing, and this was just something that I really enjoyed putting together. So I want to know whether that gripped anybody, or caught anybody's imagination. It was a truth universally accepted that a middle-class single Indian girl was in desperate need of a well-to-do, respectable Indian husband. Never mind what that middle-class single Indian girl wanted. This, I'm not going to apologize for the Pride and Prejudice reference. This was from Lasting Impressions. this short story was meant to be about 3,000 words. I printed it out recently to do edits, and it is 13 A4 papers. So it reached about 7,000 something words. If you caught the reference in the title as well, lasting impressions. But yeah, so I thought it was really a fun way to start a story with a reference to a very beloved romance story. And yeah, okay, and then the last one is probably the shortest opening that I printed out. And the story was my most recent Ko-fi short story. Death has been haunting my steps my whole life. This is from Beneath Black Wings. I think I did really like this opening as well. I thought it was like very short, snappy, and you know, do you want to know more about this character kind of vibes. Like, is it something that will intrigue someone to pull them in? So these are openings that I was personally proud of. I still am proud of when I look at them again. And you know, even as my writing style has changed over the last couple of years, these are still openings that I think gave across what I wanted for the rest of the story. Like, it built that emotion or that tone or that atmosphere that I wanted for the rest of the story, which is what I think a good opening should do. Yes, you want to get your reader's attention. Yes, you want to grip their imaginations. But if you are specifically crafting an opening just to get their attention, and then you don't carry that through to the rest of the story, you're not doing, you know, it's not a good plan, because you're not following through with what you're using to grab their attention. Instead, I think, you know, a good opening should be something that captures the tone or the mood or the atmosphere of the rest of the story. Get your characters or character, you know, in that place that they need to be for the rest of the story. Get that you know will follow through. Sometimes you need to write out the story and then come back to the opening and edit it to make sure that you've got, yes, your attention grabbing whatever words or phrases, but that you don't lose the rest of the story, the tone, the atmosphere, the voice that you want to carry through. Because if you don't follow through your opening, it's kind of a letdown. It's not kind of a letdown, it is a letdown. I don't know if this is making sense to anybody else but to me. But yeah, so these are openings that I was proud of. Would these be stories you would read from what you've heard? Is it something that you think I managed to get across? What are openings you might have written that you have been proud of, or openings that you've read somewhere that those were great openings and that they followed through in the story? Have you had an opening that did not follow through and the rest of the story just felt flat? I would love to know all of these, because you know, this channel is for me to learn and not just talk about my writing, even though I enjoy talking about my writing. And yeah, so all the links to these stories will be in the description as well. If it's something that you think you would want to read, you can follow the links, and yeah, so thank you for watching. You can like, subscribe, see all the social media you can find me on in the description, and I will see you when I see you. Bye.